A year later, it was, and Kellogg's learned a very valuable lesson. We, the British, will moan you under the table and then moan about the table. Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to cereal. Given that Britain and America are divided by an unfathomably large ocean, it's inevitable that there will be differences between our food brands, and cereal is no exception. Just a cursory glance at the shopping aisles of both countries will highlight perhaps hundreds of such memos. Now, I could spend this video talking about all of the wacky cereals that I never experienced until I moved to America, and to some extent I will, but chiefly this is a video all about same or similar brands that are marketed differently on either side of the pond. And so without further ado, here are 4 ways that British and American cereal is very different. Honey Smacks. Honey Smacks is a Kellogg's cereal that I only encountered after moving to the United States, but there are several things worth noting. Firstly, Kellogg's, a multinational company that was founded in Battle Creek, Michigan more than a century ago, is very much as prevalent and influential in the UK as it is in the United States. But this sweet and puffed wheat breakfast cereal was first introduced to the American market in the early 1950s. Initially, it went by the name of Sugar Smacks, but was changed in the 1980s to Honey Smacks, presumably because the image of kids' teeth falling out was bad for optics. Also in the 1950s, the UK launched a rather close equivalent. Sugar Puffs, a popular cereal to this very day. It was introduced by the British arm of another American company, Quaker Oats, in 1957, only for the company Big Bear Limited to acquire the company in 2006. And beside the obvious similarities between the edible product inside both boxes, Honey Smacks and Sugar Puffs have 2 other key things in common. Firstly, like Honey Smacks, the Sugar Puffs brand no longer contains the word sugar, having transitioned to Honey Monster Puffs in 2014. Now, to be fair, this was a reasonable move. I mean, I wouldn't want to be held responsible for the state of British teeth either. And secondly, both cereals incorporate some sort of colourful animal as their oh-so-lovable mascot. On the front of a box of Honey Smacks, you'll find Diggum Frog, while the Honey Monster has long been the face of the UK equivalent. And it can't be emphasised enough that both are missing one very pertinent facial feature: teeth. Who said that subliminal advertising was dead? And speaking of mascots, that brings us on to this. It's official, the Kellogg Company has been systematically colonizing the world's breakfast tables, one anthropomorphic animal at a time, but more on that in a moment. You see, there's one popular cereal whose mascot remains the same on either side of the pond, even if the cereal's name does not. I'm talking about what Americans refer to as Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. Launched in the US in 1952 as Sugar Frosted Flakes, these sugar-coated cornflakes once again dropped the word sugar in the 80s. And here's a weird fact. In the United States, the term Frosted Flakes is legally considered so generic that it cannot be trademarked. This is why you'll often see other companies selling products under the same name. If only it had a catchy title similar to Cheerios or Shreddies, you know, like the UK does. You see, in the UK and most Commonwealth countries, the same exact product is known as Kellogg's Frosties. Now, even amid the name's evolution, there's one big cat who thinks they're great. I'm talking, of course, about my cat, who often likes to dip his paw in the milk, but also Tony the tiger, who's recognised on both sides of the pond. And for somebody who identifies as a mammal well known for their large fangs, he too doesn't have any teeth. Now, I don't want to point fingers, but are we absolutely sure that Kellogg's isn't testing their products on 2D animals? Well, here's an idea. Let's ask Toucan Sam. Of course, there are some Kellogg's products that bear the same name in both Britain and America. For example, Bran Flakes, Corn Flakes, Special K, and Fruit Loops. And despite the fact that Fruit Loops sound more like a half-open packet of hard candy that you found down the back of the sofa after a long and particularly warm summer, they are in fact a breakfast cereal eaten by actual humans and children. But in Britain and America, the major difference is not the words on the box, but its contents. In America, since the 90s, a standard box contains crunchy loops of 6 different colours: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. However, in the United Kingdom, owing to a lack of natural colourings, yellow, red, and blue loops are omitted. Now, America, before you start calling the British Embassy, just know that our loops are bigger, so crisis averted. or exacerbated. Of course, in both countries, Fruit Loops wouldn't be Fruit Loops without the appearance of yet another animal, Toucan Sam, and the first thing you'll notice about Toucan Sam is that he too is dentally compromised. And I know what you're thinking, oh Lawrence, give Kellogg's a break, after all, actual toucans don't have teeth. And that's true, but they also don't have opposable thumbs, but that never stopped Kellogg's. Now, of particular interest to this channel is the bird's voice. On his first televised appearance, he spoke with a decidedly American accent that sounded suspiciously like Mel Blanc because he was voiced by Mel Blanc. Over time, though, he inexplicably and very pretentiously adopted a British accent, presumably after befriending the Geico gecko, who experienced a similarly baffling transformation. And speaking of transformation, this next serial has experienced plenty. As a child with a sweet tooth, I was always a bit of a stickler for cereal that turned the milk brown. For me, none achieved this more supremely than Kellogg's Cocoa Pops. For the uninitiated, Cocoa Pops are basically a cocoa-based version of Rice Krispies. But after moving to America, I quickly discovered that this was not the case the world over. In the United States, where the cereal was first launched in 1958, the same product is called Cocoa Krispies. Okay, fine, so they have different names, so what? Well, in my lifetime, both versions differed even more differently than they'd ever differed before. You see, in 2003, in an effort by Kellogg to unify both Cocoa and Rice Krispies, the US version was changed to Cocoa Rice Krispies, and I'm going to stop rolling my R's now. However, presumably because executives really missed the pleasing alliteration of the whole thing, it was changed back just 3 years later. But before all of this, a similar rebranding in the UK brought the entire country to a standstill. In February 1998, the British arm of Kellogg's changed the name from Cocoa Pops to Choco Krispies. And I remember it well. People were absolutely outraged. If Twitter had existed back then, hashtag Justice for Cocoa Pops would still be trending today. It got so bad that sales of the cereal absolutely plummeted. And a poll of over 1 million people found that 92% of Brits wanted that name changed back to Cocoa Pops. A year later, it was, and Kellogg's learned a very valuable lesson. We, the British, will moan you under the table and then moan about the table. As for this particular cereal's mascots, they're quite different on either side of the pond. Throughout my lifetime, the animal on the box in Britain has been, and continues to be, Coco the monkey. In fact, during the 90s, he also adorned the boxes of America's version. But today you'll find Snap, Crackle and Pop, the decidedly human faces of Rice Krispies. And you know, me being me, I couldn't let it slip by that both sets of mascots do in fact possess a complete array of pearly white teeth, suggesting two things. Number one, Kellogg's undeniably shows favoritism toward primates. And number two, these mascots have clearly never eaten Cocoa Pops. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below your favourite cereal and whether you're eating it right now. I'm Lawrence Brown. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and be sure to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. A Toucan Sam beak-sized shout out to my patrons who make these videos possible. If you would like to become a patron of Lost in the Pond, you can do so at patreon.com/LostInThePond. Until the next video, goodbye.